going on, everyone? Chris here with episode 19 of What Could Have Been in Wrestling. Definitely want to send a special shout out to Jared Gardner 5968 for this topic idea. And we're jumping right into it. I want to talk about John Cena and what could have been had he turned heel as he said he was supposed to do in 2012. Starting up, actually, John Cena did address this topic on Chris Van Vliet's YouTube show, or channel, I should say. And he said in 2012 he was ready to go. He had new gear made and new music made. And apparently WWE was going to push everything behind Sheamus as the top babyface at that point. So maybe that could have been part of the reason that he stayed as a face. But looking at it, I really think it could have been a really interesting run for him. And in all honesty, I think it would have really helped his career. Very similar to how Roman finally turning heel in 2020. Really revitalized him, gave him new life, and how Paul Heyman essentially saved him when he was pretty much sinking, in my opinion. So getting right into it, 2012, I think the heel turn could start a little bit after WrestleMania 27. Of course, at WrestleMania 27, he had faced The Rock in that once-in-a-lifetime match, and lost. And then the very next night on Raw, when he calls out The Rock to shake his hand, yes, the Beast, Brock Lesnar, returned and had a huge reaction, and he F5'd John Cena, to everyone's delight. So going into that, I still think you can go forward with them having their match at Extreme Rules. And obviously, John Laurinaitis at that point was the kind of the mouthpiece for Lesnar, where they had that brawl the week after Lesnar returned. And they really had built up Lesnar as being the unstoppable force, essentially. So I still think you go ahead with that match. It can play out a very similar way, where Lesnar is very dominant and really takes control about 90% of the match. The big difference is I don't think Cena should win. There was no reason for him to win that match, in all honesty, if you really look back at it, considering how they've protected Lesnar's character over the years. Of course, Lesnar took the chain shot and the FU on the steel steps and got pinned, which made no sense for his first time back. And I would have rather seen it where either Cena honestly either taps out or passes out from the Kimura that Lesnar had him in. The reason I would want to go with that over an F5, to be honest, is because obviously they were still giving Lesnar, obviously, the credibility. Obviously, he had incredible credibility, but still having him utilize the Kimura to get over as a dangerous move, because they obviously had him break Triple H's arm and elbow with that, even though it attacks the shoulder. I'm not going to get into that, but they tried to put it over as a dangerous move that he could hit at any time. And in all honesty, I think it should take Cena off TV for a couple months. So again, when he faces Lesnar at Extreme Rules, he loses by tapping out or passing out to the Kimura, and I think that should take him off TV. With that going forward, he would miss the next couple months of pay-per-views, so he wouldn't have his feud with John Laurinaitis. He wouldn't feud with the Big Show yet. And Laurinaitis then wouldn't have fired the Big Show and done that angle. And then at No Way Out, he wouldn't have been fired by McMahon. The reason I want to do that is because after No Way Out, then we had Money in the Bank. And at Money in the Bank, Cena did win that. And I think it would have been more impactful because I know The Miz came back and he put himself in that Money in the Bank match to make it a 5-way match instead of a 4-way. I think you can have Cena come out, do something very similar, but reveal that thanks to the Raw general manager, John Laurinaitis, he is now the 5th participant in the Money in the Bank. Being very polarizing already, I think that a lot of fans would have hated that. But I also think it would have hinted at possibly a heel turn, obviously, because why would Laurinaitis want to help out John Cena being the heel GM? In my opinion, you can still have Cena win Money in the Bank, and you don't know what kind of reaction it would get. In all seriousness, I'm not really sure. It could have gotten some cheers because the hint at the heel turn might have actually gotten some fans on his side, especially more of the adults watching. While maybe the kids weren't really so sure, so it could kind of basically flip the reaction he was getting from kids to adults. After that, the next night on Raw, he could come out and he could call out Otunga, and he could call out John Laurinaitis, and then he could thank them for helping him win the Money in the Bank, and he can endorse Laurinaitis as a superior GM. Because again, he had won control of both Raw and SmackDown at WrestleMania after Eve had turned on Zack Ryder. Now, sticking with Eve, I'd want her to be part of this group as well. So really, you could have John Cena as the main wrestler, David Otunga as the flunky to get beaten up, Cena being protected by Laurinaitis now as the GM, and Eve as his valet, because I really think a heel Eve being his valet would definitely get him good heat, especially among the guys, obviously, for obvious reasons. You can actually call back because they did have a makeout session on Raw that started Eve's heel turn, and it pissed off Zack Ryder. Cena can call back to that, and honestly, he could get really close with Eve and rub it in everyone's face that he's taking her home, and everyone else watching is just losers. From there forward, we can obviously move forward to the cash-in. Now, the cash-in would be somewhat similar to what they did, but obviously with a different outcome, in my opinion. And it could honestly be, just like I said, part of this 4-man group could be somewhat of a short-lived alliance, because I don't think Laurinaitis would be on TV too much longer. The way it would work is, I actually think that Cena can then come out the week before Raw 1000, and when Punk is taking on the Big Show, he could tease the cash-in like he did, but he can actually tell, and then maybe the Big Show even encourages it, but instead of completing the cash-in and going through with it, what he can do then is he can tell Punk, I'm giving you 1 week notice that next week on Raw, at Raw 1000, I am going to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase and take your WWE title. Even though that's more of a face move to do, I think you can have Cena do that for 2 reasons. One, he can basically fall back and say, I don't want Punk to have any recourse for how he got screwed over, because if I pin him now after the Big Show beat him down, then he's going to have excuses, and I don't want Punk to have any excuses after I beat him. So when we get, and then there's a second reason coming. So when we get to Raw 1000, you can actually have a little tension between Laurinaitis and Cena. And Laurinaitis can tell Cena, this wasn't the plan. You were supposed to cash in last week and come here on Raw 1000 and be the WWE champion already. Cena can tell him, look, I don't have to do everything you tell me. I have a plan, and I can tell you it's going to work. So they can have their match to main event Raw. And if you remember right, the match ended with CM Punk starting his heel turn by attacking The Rock and giving him the GTS, and kind of leaving it confused why he did that and why he didn't want to help out Cena when he was being attacked by the Big Show. In this situation, you can have it still where the ref gets knocked out, And then when Punk looks like he has the match in hand, the Big Show can run in. He can actually maybe hint that he might take out Cena, because again, if he doesn't do that thing where he's fired, and if he doesn't do that angle where he gets the, quote, ironclad contract from John Laurinaitis, he may still be a babyface at this point. But acting like he's about to punch Cena the heel, he turns around and then he could deck Punk instead. So because of that, John Cena, can put Punk in the STF, and then, even though he won't tap out, kind of like at Money in the Bank 2011, when Cena had Punk in the STFU, and McMahon told Laurinaitis, have them go ring the bell at that Money in the Bank show, Laurinaitis can do the same thing and just make sure the bell gets rung, and John Cena is now the WWE champion. So, no historic reign for Punk, no 434 days, etc. His reign ends at Raw 1000. The very next week, you can have Cena basically explaining his actions with Laurinaitis and saying, look, for years I tried to do the right thing. It never got me anywhere with you people. You people always wanted to chant Cena sucks, and I had to start looking out for myself. With that in mind, obviously, Punk stays a babyface in this feud now, so they can still feud Cena and Punk, but Punk is the babyface and Cena is the heel. From there, you can have, like I said, Laurinaitis still wouldn't be on TV too much longer, and you can have, similar to what the Big Show did, where he just basically told Laurinaitis after he got fired, I'm done helping you out. You can have Cena tell John Laurinaitis one other thing. He said he could tell him at Raw 1000, I talked to Vince, and we had a clause in the contract saying that not only was the WWE title on the line, but your job was on the line. And if you interfered in any way in that match between me and Punk, because I wanted Punk to have no excuses, you would be fired. You interfered, and then Vince can come out and basically lower the boom on John Laurinaitis and tell him, that you're fired. So you can go ahead with that, and Laurinaitis just realized he got screwed over. David Otunga can then just drop from the alliance, because I know that he basically, when he was tagging with John Laurinaitis in a handicap match against Cena, he just up and left and said, screw this, I'm done. You can have him do the same thing. And then you can have Cena, even though it would probably get cheered, obviously, you can have him hit the FU on Laurinaitis on his way out. That would leave Cena and Eve together, and Cena as the WWE champion. So from there, we're going in now to SummerSlam. Now, you can also hint at some tension on the women's side, because now Cena has Eve as his valet, still helping him win matches, and Punk obviously wants his title back. You can obviously now head into SummerSlam with the original plan being Punk versus Cena, but the Big Show can come out on Raw and basically say, look, Cena, we had a deal. You told me if I helped you win the belt against Punk, I'd get a shot at the WWE title. Cena can try to hem and haw and talk his way out of it, but then, remember, AJ Lee became the Raw GM at Raw 1000. I still think we go through with that, so she has the power to make matches. And she makes it a triple threat match, which is what happened. At SummerSlam, you can have the triple threat match play out very similar. You can even do the spot where the Big Show was in the Anaconda Bice and the STFU at the same time. He taps out, and then they both feel, Cena and Punk both think they won. They both think they're the champion. AJ Lee can come out, and I know that there was a section where Cena kind of accused Punk and AJ being in on it together and said, I know you two have something going on, harkening back to their angle where AJ Lee had proposed to Punk and she was dressing in his gear. So again, that's why you can also have the tension between AJ Lee and Eve. From there, they can still have him restart the match. You can actually have Punk hit the GTS on the Big Show, but then Cena steals the pin, which is an inverse of what happened in reality when Cena hit the FU on the Big Show and Punk stole the pin. So Cena retains in a kind of a cheap way because he steals CM Punk's pin after Punk does all the work and takes out the Big Show. I want Big Show pinned here because I don't want CM Punk losing again. And again, you have Cena retaining the title now going into that fall. Going into Night of Champions, you can have Punk still confirming that he's still exercising a rematch because he wasn't pinned at SummerSlam. And now it's him versus Cena one-on-one. You can do, obviously, the same ending for their one-on-one match at Night of Champions. Now, I know they did the classic double pin angle where Cena had hit a German suplex, but when he tried to bridge for the pin, his shoulders were down along with Punk's, so it was a draw. And then Punk remained champion because it was a draw, and Cena didn't win. You can do a similar situation where Cena gets the, quote, pin on Punk with the German suplex, and then after he counts 3, you can have, obviously, Cena, he ran and grabbed the title. I think it's actually a good thing that he did that, because in this position as a heel, he can come out, he can run and grab the title. Maybe he knows that his shoulders were also down, so to avoid any controversy, he runs and grabs the title and tries to get the fuck out of there. Now, because of that, in my opinion, Punk still now has, even though he has, quote, lost, he technically didn't lose because it was a draw. It should have been a draw. So Punk can obviously come out and still state his appeal and say, AJ, if you looked at it, if you saw what happened, you would know that I didn't lose. Cena's shoulders were down along with mine. So maybe they don't actually reveal that until the next night on Raw this time. So that's fine. Cena can still obviously claim that he doesn't owe Punk a rematch. He can tell everyone, you saw what happened, we saw you get pinned, and I'm still the champion. Going there forward, we're now going into the later fall with Hell in a Cell, and obviously the emergence of CM Punk's favorite wrestler, Ryback. So I want to actually address something because also around this time, Punk and Heyman got together as a duo, and Punk became a Paul Heyman guy. And obviously, it also helped solidify Punk more as a heel. Since Punk is staying babyface in this scenario, I don't think that happens yet. And Punk is still the face, along with Ryback. So Ryback can obviously stake his claim at the title, but I know in reality at this point, after Night of Champions, Cena I know had an elbow injury because he came out in a sling for a bit. Cena didn't work Hell in a Cell, and he can still claim injury, and then there can be still, like I said, you can do Ryback versus Punk one-on-one in a number 1 contenders match for the title to face Cena, for the right to face Cena at Hell in a Cell. Ryback and Punk wouldn't close out the show at that point then, because it would just be a number 1 contenders match. And I think you could have still, even though Cena's not working, you could have had Sheamus and Big Show close out Hell in a Cell for the world title on SmackDown. Just a quick thought, I remember watching that Hell in a Cell back then, and I felt Sheamus vs. Big Show was match of the night. I really enjoyed that match, and I also enjoyed their subsequent rematches, and Big Show was the new champion. He did pin Sheamus, so you can also send the fans home. At least they got to see a title change with the Big Show winning the world title finally. Going back to Hell in a Cell now between Punk and Ryback, what you can do there is very simple. You can have Punk win, and again, this would be a mid-card match, but he can use some heel tactics because I know he beat Ryback at one point in 2013 by hitting him with a low blow and then hitting a roll-up. You can do a similar finish there because CM Punk just wants to get his #1 contendership back. And Ryback can have a little bit of a claim that he got screwed over by getting low blowed and then getting pinned, obviously, after an illegal move. For a little bit of protection for his character, because he was still on the rise at this point, and at that time had that undefeated streak. So going forward from there, you can move forward to Survivor Series, and then it's declared another triple threat match. This time, Cena versus Ryback versus Punk, but with John Cena as the champion. And in this match, you can still have it where it looks like Ryback has it in the bag. He can hit Shell Shock on Cena. But if we remember that night, a certain trio debuted. And yes, the Shield debuted, attacked Ryback, and gave him the Shield bomb through the table. What you can do actually to hint at that, because now they're not CM Punk's guys, they're helping out John Cena. I want to bring Eve back into the picture a little bit, and you can have backstage segments where Eve is on the phone talking to someone, but you don't know who. And it's kind of like John Laurinaitis when he had his cell phone angle, because every time he was texting someone, when he became an on-screen character, someone would run out, and fans definitely caught on to that because the fans would give a big reaction and pop whenever he'd bring out the phone. So like I said, you can have Eve on the phone, and you don't know who she's talking to, but just just saying something like, just make sure you're ready for tonight's match. And they kind of leave it up, obviously, where it's a little bit of a mystery. So again, obviously, what it would be hinting at is that it was Eve on the phone with the Shield debuting to ensure that Cena retains his title after Ryback is taken out. From there, after Survivor Series, Eve can even come out and speak for Cena. And she can actually say, hey, look, everyone is accusing John of cheating to win this match and being in cahoots with those guys who debuted. And she can say, we have no idea who they are. They're not associated with me and John. And all of these fake accusations are going to lead to nothing but issues for you if you continue to press them. So she can obviously be also a little bit of a mouthpiece for John to keep his heel character alive. Because again, now she can draw heat in for herself and for John. Then going forward now into TLC, the Shield were then preoccupied that night because they made their in-ring debut against Ryback, Kane, and Daniel Bryan. I think that would stay the same. As a side note, that six-man was a TLC six-man, and I remember really, really enjoying that match. Looking back, honestly, I remember thinking that was either the best or second best match in WWE for the entire year of 2012. So I would want to keep that match as it was. And in my opinion, honestly, Cena can still be on the card because he did main event in that ladder match with Dolph Ziggler. And so instead of main eventing for a Money in the Bank briefcase, which is what Dolph had, I believe, yep, because he won the world title in 2013 with it, instead of having that, you can have Cena main event the Money in the Bank for Dolph's briefcase, still as WWE champion. The way you can do that as a heel is he can literally hint and say, I'm already WWE champion, but once I win your briefcase, Dolph, I'm also going to cash it in and become the world champion and be a 2-title holder. And you know fans would get pissed at that prospect. So that's why I want to do it like that. In that match, AJ Lee had turned on Cena because they had an on-screen relationship going, and she shoved Cena off the ladder. I actually think it could be a somewhat similar ending because I think Cena can lose this match but not lose his title. And this time it's AJ Lee. I know at that point she had been released of her GM duties. You can still have her screw over Cena to get some payback because you can, looking back at that, you can have Cena also play a hand like he did with Laurinaitis losing his job. You can have him play a hand in AJ Lee losing her job as GM. So AJ Lee can shove him off the ladder, and Ziggler can retain his briefcase. After that, you can actually have a little crack in the armor show for Cena, because he could be pissed that he didn't win the second briefcase, and you can have him actually blaming Eve a little bit for that, and saying, why didn't you have her in check, and why weren't you out there to take care of her, to make sure that I remain the winner and can win both titles. You can have him basically chewing Eve out for not doing her job, and you can have basically a hint of their association ending. Now, moving forward to the Royal Rumble, things are going to change there. Because, again, Cena won the 2013 Royal Rumble, and also that same night, The Rock beat CM Punk for the WWE Championship. At this point, I actually think that obviously Cena's walking into the Rumble as champion, and The Rock is obviously out of the picture. I don't think he's obviously getting a title shot at that Rumble. So what you can do instead is you can switch it, and I actually wouldn't want Cena and Punk to face again. I think they would have maybe faced one too many times. And I actually think the guy you can have facing John Cena would be Daniel Bryan at the 2013 Royal Rumble. The reason why is because Daniel Bryan was already starting to get over. The night after WrestleMania 28, the night after that WrestleMania, when Cena had called out The Rock and Brock returned, the people were chanting for Daniel Bryan. Like, his yes stuff and just him as a performer was getting over huge. And, in this case, I think you have Cena versus Daniel Bryan going at it. And you can actually have Cena as a heel calling back to a match they had, I believe, in 2002. And you can talk about how Cena beat Daniel Bryan when he was an absolute nobody. And he did it on, like, Velocity, I think it was. You can talk about how Daniel Bryan was a nobody then, and he's a nobody now. And the highest he'll ever get is that world title, but not Cena's WWE title. And you can really have him as the underdog challenging him. And in that case, I still think Cena needs to retain the belt and beat Daniel Bryan. And even though obviously Daniel Bryan would still have a good match with Cena, and it would give him a good showing, and he would still be a tag champ with Kane at that time, so he still has credibility as a wrestler. Now going into, Elimination Chamber that February. Now we're getting close to WrestleMania 29, which was a really crappy WrestleMania. But that's besides the point, because now we're talking about Elimination Chamber. At Elimination Chamber that year in 2013, Cena had actually teamed up, I believe it was, with Ryback and Sheamus, versus The Shield, and they lost when Ryback got pinned after a spear from Roman Reigns. In this case, obviously, he wouldn't be a part of that six-man. So you can still have Sheamus and Ryback team up with a Chris Jericho that had returned in the Royal Rumble that year, because now we're in 2013. And you can have them do that six-man with Ryback still eating the pin. And honestly, I think Cena would actually duck out of defending his belt and wouldn't even be in an Elimination Chamber match. I think the main guy who you would see in there to be a number one contender would actually be, because I wouldn't want him to win the Rumble, because I don't think The Rock should be working the Rumble at this point. Going back to that, I forgot to mention that, but I don't think he would win the Rumble. But you can have him in Elimination Chamber, because I know he faced Punk at Elimination Chamber, so he did work that event. I think you can actually have The Rock in the Elimination Chamber, and you can have Rock winning the Chamber match for Raw and becoming the number one contender for WrestleMania. So now, like they said, that once in a lifetime is now twice in a lifetime, or whatever it was they said. But you can now have at WrestleMania The Rock versus John Cena again. But this time Cena is the WWE champion as a heel. And you can obviously have The Rock being the challenger. You can still have their one-on-one face-offs. You can have them, obviously, having their debates in the ring and their promo battles. And then for the night of WrestleMania, when they face, Eve had actually left the WWE early in January of 2013. That's why I wanted to have, like, hints at their disassociation going on. In this scenario, I would like to see her say literally just like 2 more months. And while she's basically kind of hinting at making a call again to make sure that Cena has backup to retain the title, so that's where it can be revealed that the Shield had been working for Cena at that point. They can have that going into WrestleMania also revealed. Cena can tell Eve, I don't want you doing anything for me anymore. I need to beat The Rock on my own. And basically exercise the demon that was losing to The Rock the year previous. So now going into WrestleMania 29, obviously what you see here is their match, but from the scenario I just gave, it's hints at a face turn for Cena, going back to being a babyface. The match can play out the same way, with Cena getting the win this time over The Rock, of course, to avenge his loss, and now they're 1-1. And it could still end the same way. Mania can end the same way with the handshake between The Rock and Cena. And The Rock raising Cena's hand, endorsing him as the champion. And I actually think that would bring us back to a face turn for John Cena to cap out WrestleMania 29. So that's how I feel it would go. So it would be a little bit less than a 1-year run. So I know not the longest time, but looking at how WWE was so PG about everything at that time still, and so image conscious, even if they did go forward with a Cena heel turn, I don't think it would be a long-term run like what Roman had from 2020, basically until the beginning of, until like basically Mania of this year. So almost a 4-year stint as a heel. I think it would be, honestly, probably less than a year run for Cena, so he can at least have the character, work as a heel for a bit, and then possibly get the fans back on his side because of it, like he did when he was originally a heel in 2003. He became popular because of his gimmick and because of his mannerisms and his promos. It can turn back to that this time 10 years later, and now Cena is back to being a babyface the next night on Raw. So that's, again, where I'll leave it. Again, appreciate everyone who's tuning in and giving me suggestions on what to talk about next. And also a special announcement. I posted it on the community board, but episode 20 is going to be a question and answer style episode. So it's not going to be a what could have been episode with any specific topic, but I just want to hear your questions about anything in wrestling. It doesn't have to be what could have been. It can be anything wrestling related. I've already gotten a lot of good questions, so I definitely appreciate all that. Please keep them coming, and I'm going to try to answer as many as possible. So that's going to be episode 20, just as a preview for that. Again, appreciate everyone's suggestions. Leave your comments and thoughts on this Cena heel run down below. And please, like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep everything, like I said, and keep the ideas coming. So, thanks again, guys, and take care. Hey, everyone. Chris back up here again, a day after recording the most recent episode. And I realized when I was editing, at about 1 minute and 31 seconds in, when I talked about The Rock and John Cena's first meeting at WrestleMania, I said it was WrestleMania 27. So I want to correct that mistake. Their first meeting was in 2012 at WrestleMania 28. So, my fault on that. I don't know why I was thinking 27, but I wanted to just actually come up here and make this quick video just to correct that. Other than that, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the topic, and get ready for the question and answer session for episode 20 next week. Take care, guys.